Hello foodies, welcome into another video. I'm Das Food, and after doing a video on the Forgotten Survivors of Dead by Daylight, I was asked numerous times to do one on the Forgotten Killers, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the killers who don't see much playtime, and we're going to ask why aren't they played very much, and then for most of them I'm going to offer reasons why you should consider playing them. If you do enjoy the video, please do hit like, please subscribe, I appreciate it very much. Leave a comment down below, it helps the video, and it's actually my favorite part about being a content creator. I love getting to read comments. So, all of that out of the way, let's get into it and start with a list of the ultra popular killers, just like we did last time. Now, thankfully, there is actually some numerical evidence as to which killers are played as opposed to survivors. So, while part of it's anecdotal, I listed the ultra popular killers as Huntress, Artist, Nurse, Spirit, Blight, Cannibal, Wraith, Ghostface, Mastermind, and Legion. I see all of these very frequently, and I'd imagine you do too. Next, we have the popular killers. These being, some of these by the way, rather surprising: Trapper, Shape, Trickster, Doctor, Knight, Onryo, Cenobite, Nemesis, Executioner, Oni, Pig, Plague, Deathslinger, Dredge. Admittedly, it is kind of a little bit harder to place the newer killers like Knight and Onryo, but I'm just kind of going off of giving them the benefit of the doubt, and personally, I do see a decent amount of both of them. Dredge, yeah, he was kind of a borderline case, but we'll let him pass for now. Now, if you were keeping count, you realize that there are only 6 killers left, so let's get into the unpopular ones, starting with number 1, the hillbilly. It's strange that Billy is on this list, given that he's not only one of the original 3 killers, but also that he's the strongest of the 3 by what I consider to be a substantial margin. Despite this, Billy is in a uniquely unfortunate situation when it comes to pick rate. Wraith is simple and decent enough that he sees play at all levels of the game, save for maybe the tippy top of MMR. And Trapper is absent at the high levels, but inescapable at lower tiers. That's what happens when you're the cover boy and behavior inexplicably list you as an easy killer. Hillbilly doesn't have any of these benefits though, as he's much too difficult for lower MMR players, and he's not commonly thought to be strong enough for the sweatier players. Basically, there are far better options both for those who want a straightforward experience and those who want to take the time to learn a meta killer. Quite a few killers are on a similar power level as Billy while also being much easier to learn, which definitely hurts him. If behavior wants to buff Billy's pick rate, the fix is pretty simple. Remember, there was a time when our dear Billy boy was right up there with the best of the best when it came to pick rate. All that needs to be done, in my opinion, is for behavior to either remove or at least greatly relax the overheat mechanic and to restore some of his better add-ons. Overheat makes a world of sense for Bubba, but it's just not as logical on Billy. Sure, a hillbilly technically could camp a single survivor, but that's far less viable on him. Billy is better off speeding around the map and trying to get hits around corners. He's good at spreading pressure rather than staying on one survivor. If they would make it where it takes longer to overheat at all, and where the built-up heat would release faster, that would make Hillbilly feel way better to play. I also say that his add-ons need another pass, because, as of now, his current offerings are mostly pretty rough, in that they're neither powerful nor interesting to use. All in all, making Hillbilly a more playable character isn't that difficult. The same can't be said for number 2, the Clown. What are we supposed to do with the Clown? His power is both simple for newcomers and rewarding for longtime mains. His place in the meta is fine enough as is, and as far as cosmetics go, he's got some of the best in the game. So why do so few people play the Bottle Boy? Well, I think a lot of that has to do with his history. Historically, the Clown came out after a string of bad killers and was unfortunately unable to break the trend. Following on the heels of Bubba, Freddy, and Amanda, all of whom were quite underwhelming upon release, Clown was added to the game at a time when there were only 12 killers, and even then, there was a lot of debate as to whether or not he was in the top 10. Over time, he received some really nice quality of life changes, namely the addition of the yellow bottle, the removal of the movement speed nerf after throwing a bottle, and the shortening of his reload time from 5 to 3 seconds. But by that point, the ship had sailed. Minor improvements to a generally weak killer weren't going to bring in new droves of players, especially not when the changes weren't made until after the addition of popular killers like Spirit, Legion, Plague, Oni, Pyramid Head, and Blight. Even today, where Clown is in his best ever state, he's underutilized because he's just not good enough to justify using. He's perfectly fine in a one-on-one chase, yes, of course, but he greatly struggles to pressure gens, and the hit-and-run playstyle just isn't viable anymore. In an era of constant brand new parts, Circle of Healing, and large maps with numerous survivor-sided vaults and pallets, Clown really has his work cut out for him against good teams. All of that said, I am a Clown main for a reason, and obviously, I recommend playing the character. While not top tier by any means, a good Clown is more than capable of making life hell for survivors. Some of the very same god palettes and windows that I was just complaining about are much less safe against Clown than they are against most of the roster. Plus, again, he's got the best cosmetics in the game. Chicken Clown, Santa Clown, Elephant Clown, Blighted Clown, Hades Clown, Creepy Doll Clown. There are numerous S-tier cosmetics for this one killer, and I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes more popular as people start to realize how much stronger he is than he used to be. Of course, not all killers jump around the tier list. Some are happy to find a place and stay there forever, such as our number 3 selection, the Demogorgon. Now, it should go without saying, but yes, DBD losing the Stranger Things license definitely hurt Demogorgon's ability to be a top-played character. Outside of those who buy special copies online, most new players are simply unable to play as Demo, which entirely shuts the valve for potential new Demo mains. And unsurprisingly, this is exactly what's happened. There was a time when it felt like I saw a Demogorgon pretty often, but these days, the Demodog is pretty rare. Really, it seems like I only see him at higher tiers, and even then, it's not a common occurrence. That being said, I don't think we can entirely blame DBD losing the license on why not only Demo, but also Steve and Nancy have fallen in player count. While it may be controversial to say, I don't think Stranger Things has the same type of fanbase as the other licenses in the game. Sure, people love the property, and yes, it will almost undoubtedly go on to be iconic in the next 20 years. But I can't shake the feeling that Stranger Things fans simply have a different relationship with their media than franchises like Evil Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Ringu. About once a year, Stranger Things explodes in popularity as it welcomes in a new season. The hype goes through the roof, everybody you know talks about the show at length, and then, poof. The hype is gone, and the consumers have moved on to the next big thing. It's not that they forget that they like Stranger Things, it's just that there's other bingeable content to take in, and many won't think about Stranger Things again until it comes time to get hyped for the next season. None of this, mind you, is Stranger Things' fault. The show is rather good. I'd even go as far as to say it's an above average show with some really memorable moments and some cool characters. Despite this, there's no shaking that Stranger Things is one of many properties that is made for and marketed to the ADD generation. Despite its fairly obvious quality, the time and manner in which it's been developed has led to Stranger Things existing in a weird state of flux. Again, in time, I think it will be enduringly popular like most other DBD licenses. It's just not there yet. At least, Stranger Things can say it's ever popular. Unlike our next entry, number 4, The Hag. Life in the fog has been rough for Hagatha, and I don't see it getting much better anytime soon. Much like the Clown, she had a bit of a slow release and needed many kinks worked out before she felt better to play. Unlike Clown, her chapter came with pretty universally reviled maps, a not-so-popular survivor, and a killer whose power was complex to even use decently. Picking why Hag is unpopular is rather easy. Her design is one of the weaker ones in the game, lacking the rule of cool that seems to dictate so many of DBD's design decisions. And on top of that, her perks are pretty underwhelming these days. With Devour Hope being fun but unreliable, Third Seal being decent but not great, and Ruin existing in a sad shell of its former glory. There's also the issue of the fun factor with Hag, and by that I mean that for most people it's basically non-existent. Hag requires careful planning, precise timing, and most frustratingly of all, luck. Even if you're a good Hag player, a match can be undone not only by all of the usual downsides, but also by being found too early by the survivors, therefore enabling them to destroy your web of traps as you're building it, going up against the normally weak urban evasion, and if the survivors have flashlights, to destroy your traps. Now that reassurance has rendered camping even less viable, Hag's life is pretty hard. And with all of that being said, I still haven't even mentioned that the hag moves 5% slower than most killers and has a field of view about on par with Victor. More on him in a little bit. In short, Hag is a very hard to play killer who forces players to use a generally unpopular playstyle if she has any hope of winning. But even with that being said, there are good reasons to play as Hag. Firstly, she spends the early part of the game setting up, so Hag is almost always playing from behind. While that might stress some players out, others will enjoy the challenge of always fighting for the comeback. She also rewards intelligent play, so big brain killers will often get the satisfaction of watching their expertly laid plans come to fruition. In the right hands, she's pretty powerful too, so good hags will have a solid chance against even coordinated teams. And while I don't love her base cosmetic, there are some pretty cool alternatives in the shop that spice up her look quite a bit. Hag isn't everyone's cup of tea. There's literally no killer I'd rather play against less, by the way. She gives me headaches when she jumps out of the ground. But she's just right for the occasional player, so make sure you do give her a try before writing her off completely. Because remember, you should never form your opinions off of what other people tell you to think. One character I can't recommend you play, however, is number 5, the Nightmare, better known by his real name of Freddy Krueger. If life has been consistently hard for the hag, life for Freddy could be described as consistently inconsistent. He debuted in the game with a unique and, I thought, enjoyable power, but many players, I don't know, I guess they hate fun things, and there were loud cries for a rework. Once behavior finally caved and changed how Freddy is played, we all suffered. Post-rework Freddy was a miserable sight to behold, boasting game lengths that could regularly reach the 30-minute mark. He was nerfed in very little time, and since then, Freddy has just been there. He's there. Modern Freddy, despite what some may say, is not a terrible killer. He's not good, but there are definitely worse options. The problem with modern Freddy, and the reason why so few players choose to main him, is that all of his abilities are executed better on other killers. He has a built-in slowdown status effect, but Plague and Wesker are much better in that regard. He can actively zone with his snares, but Clown's bottles do the same thing much more effectively. He teleports, but there's a long cooldown and he can't do it after the last gen pops, unlike Demogorgon and Sadako, who both have much freer access to their teleportation abilities. In short, Freddy is an odd amalgamation of several killers, and his kit just feels somewhat disjointed. If this wasn't bad enough, I guess I also have to mention that the version of Freddy in DBD isn't even the one everybody loves, but instead the much reviled reboot Freddy. Though, of course, as I always like to point out, Jackie Earle Haley did a fine job. The film's failure was not his fault. While this may not seem like a huge deal, it means that even hardcore Nightmare on Elm Street fans are less likely to play as Freddy because this isn't really the character they love. I trash Freddy pretty often, and if I can come clean with you, I only try to hurt him because he hurt me first. I loved the first version of Freddy and was a Nightmare main for most of the time I played on console, which was about 2 years. That version of the character was interesting and truly different from the rest of the game, and even though he wasn't the strongest, I still loved him. I really wish behavior would revert Freddy to what he used to be, because what he is now just isn't it. The little flourish he does after landing a hit will always be cool as hell though, so at least we can always rely on that. Lastly, we arrive at number 6, the twins, and I can't imagine anybody will be surprised to hear that this is the least popular killer in all of Dead by Daylight. But why are they so unpopular? Well, that is hard to condense into a single reason. Like a few others, the twins were released in a chapter that was, to say the least, rushed. The killers themselves were horribly unpolished, and despite being given the title of chapter and not paragraph, Charlotte and Victor weren't accompanied by a new map or realm. Making matters worse was that nobody could seem to agree on where the twins fell in the DBD meta. Some swore by their power and said that they were an easy A tier, while others called them a clunkily designed mess that was far too unreliable to rank so highly. In my humble opinion, there were valid points being made by both sides because I am a fence sitter, and I generally cite the twins as good but deeply flawed. The greatest reasons for Charlotte and Victor's lack of fanfare are undeniably aesthetic. I mentioned the rule of cool when speaking about the hag, but the twins take that flaw to a whole new level. Charlotte is just a human, one with almost nothing exceptional about her. Other strongly human characters can be seen wearing masks, painting their faces, or, in the case of killers like Trickster and the Artist, just being hot. And while I don't want to be rude, and everyone is certainly allowed to like what they like, Charlotte is anything but attractive. She's certainly not helped by her accessories either. I don't know why they gave her the shoes that they did, or why they gave her the hat that they did, but damn, this girl needs a makeover. She makes me look fashionable, and I can barely dress myself. With Charlotte being such a flop, Victor was the twins' last hope at making the chapter cool. This is where behavior killed the chapter in the crib, no pun intended. Rather than let players customize Victor and make him their own, they chose to make his appearance static. No funny hats, no cute onesies, no legendary cosmetics that turn him into a gremlin or Scrappy-Doo, nothing. In all of DBD's long history, there has been no greater missed opportunity than this. At least, not as it relates to cosmetics. So here we have it. A killer with a divisive power, an incomplete chapter, and a terrible look. Gee, I wonder why a Binding of Kin bombed like it did. Still, there is a rework being planned for the twins, and I will pop like the mark I am if when they announce it, they announce that they're going to be Victor Cosmetics. Because genuinely speaking, I think that's all they have to do to make this a more popular killer. I know some people are going to say that's ridiculous. I don't think it is. I genuinely think if people could dress up Victor as Bunny Victor, I think they would be a lot more popular, but who knows? Maybe I'm putting too much stock in cosmetics. But as always, that's gonna do it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember, like, please, it helps. It helps so much. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are. And remember, I do read my comments. I'm small enough that I can read every comment. So if you have a recommendation for a video you'd like to see, please do put it down in the comments below. I promise you, I'll see it. But until next time, I've been Das Food. Bye, friends.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my